George Carlin said, "Think of how stupid the average person is, and realize half of them are stupider than that." What real-life example have you seen that validates this view? There is a considerable overlap between the intelligence of the smartest bears and the dumbest tourists. Yosemite Park Ranger on why it's hard to design a bear-proof garbage can. I worked at a bank. Mobile depositing had just became a thing. We received a picture of someone's cash for deposit. Yay! A woman I used to work with who insisted that any animal could reproduce with any other animal. She believed that sperm from any animal was the same and that DNA was irrelevant. She believed this because she once saw some sickly, possibly deformed puppies and decided that they must have been half dog and half rat. The fact Florida had to tell people not to shoot at the hurricane. Even better, the fact that NOAA even has to have a section on their site explaining why using nuclear weapons against hurricanes is far worse than the worst idea you can possibly imagine. One of my nieces had a cold as a toddler and was breathing through her mouth. My ex-Bill flipped out because he didn't want her to get carbon monoxide poisoning from breathing through her mouth instead of her nose, the normal way. I teach 6th grade. One time a parent came to me after trying to help their child with math homework and asked, "What number is X worth? It feels like it changes with every problem." It is not. The parent came to me after school, without their child, because they knew something was wrong and didn't want to look stupid in front of their kid. This is filed in my brain of parent reactions I can't fathom. Along with the mom that year who asked if her child could play piano and marching band. On 9/11, the general manager called his daughter who was attending ASU to wake her up and make sure she saw what was going on. The customer service manager said, "It won't be on her TV yet. Arizona is 2 hours behind us." Why didn't Australia warn us about 9/11s? After all, they're several hours ahead. I worked at Little Caesars and we were proofing the dough for pizza. My boss said, at 7 p.m., that the dough needed to rise for 12 hours, and took out her calculator to do the math. So I said, that's gonna be 7 a.m. Then she said the dough will expire in 48 hours and started doing the math again. I told her it would expire 2 days from now, and she said that's kinda weird how that works out, huh? I quit shortly after that. Just scroll down a web page or Facebook feed and have a look at the ads. Things like, only 2% can solve this puzzle, shit like that. Those ads get posted so much because they actually work on a lot of people. I'm an insurance claims adjuster. If you truly knew how many stupid drivers you're sharing the road with, you'd never drive again. Edit because I keep getting this question. I avoid driving whenever possible. I have a car, but I take the bus to from work. I never drive at night. I work in highway safety, can confirm. I can no longer count on 2 hands the number of people I've stopped with in the middle lane of traffic on a freeway, with no bigger problem than a flat tire. When I question them as to why they stopped in the middle of a freeway, the typical answer is either the vehicle wouldn't go any further, or they don't want to damage their rim. I swear to whatever you want me to swear to. People will put the well-being of the rim on their car above their own safety and even the safety of their children. At the start of working from home due to COVID, I had a few users submit tickets for connectivity issues. These tickets got through 2 lines of support before landing in my queue. Turns out that the corporate Wi-Fi doesn't follow you home and you need home internet in order to connect to the VPN. In grade 10, we had a science test, and the teacher gave 1 point for putting a date on the paper, and 1 point for your name on the paper. And then there were 98 points for the rest of the test. A guy sitting in front of me got 0.5, 100. Didn't write the date and only wrote his first name. The woman that called into a radio station to complain about the deer crossing signs on a highway, saying that the deer will see the sign and consider this place a safe place to cross the link. In the 80s, A&W attempted to compete with McDonald's quarter-pounder burger by selling a third pounder for the same price. The operation failed tremendously, with virtually no one buying the burger. When they surveyed customers for an explanation, the majority of customers responded that they didn't want to pay the same price for less meat. Their customers genuinely believed that 1/3 was less than 1/4 and refused to try the new A&W burger because of it. Edit. Obligatory fuck everyone who says, "Rip my inbox, I hate that shit." Infantryman was told to trim the hedges. So he lifted the lawnmower. His buddy started it. As a brand new medic, I spent about 6 hours pulling finger meat from the hedges. Edit. Thanks for the award. Update. Sorry, I'm a redderp and on a phone. For clarification, it was early 2004 after OIF 1 in the 82nd. I was a PFC with only a year and a half in service. We bandaged him, then used tourniquet, temporarily. Senior medics took him to the I was field sanitation qualified, so I was left in charge of cleanup. 6 hours was excessive, but after we pulled most the meat and bone out, we had to hose down the hedges, the ground, the grass he bled in, the ground, floor outside and inside where he left a decent amount of blood had to be rinsed and sterilized. The mower had to be rinsed and cleaned. It had some damage from the drop. The private that started the mower had to be smoked by his NCO. We finished in about 4 hours of actual work with 2 hours of fucking off mixed in. Cause the sham shield is the real deal. Holy shit, that's a thumb. Was at a party and someone's shitty old truck got stuck in some mud, so instead of sobering up and coming back the next day, he makes a Molotov cocktail with gas and throws it at the truck. The truck caught fire and was completely destroyed. Jason? Whenever you've got a problem, throw a Molotov cocktail and then you've got a different problem. Knew a kid who drank bleach to prove it wouldn't kill you. A week later he showed up at school after taking a shot. He said he proved his point when the teacher asked why he was bragging about it. Mr. Hawk just said, "But you cannot argue that without that medical treatment you'd have died, though you even said you have stomach damage and a burn esophagus yourself." This kid was bragging about that. He was not mentally disabled or otherwise. He was just that kind of idiot. Edit. Thank you all. Who'd have thought my most upvoted comment would be about some kid I knew drinking literal bleach. Rip my inbox. When I was in high school, we were reading a short story about what would have happened if the Japanese attacked us back with nuclear weapons after Hiroshima and Nagasaki. A girl in my class raised her hand and said something along the lines of, "Why does this matter? None of it is real anyway." The teacher had to ask her to clarify, but this girl thought World War II and the bombing of Japan were just from a movie and didn't actually happen. The best part is, the girl was half Japanese. Edit. Wow, thank you for all of the upvotes. I have a ton more stories about this girl, so maybe I'll post some on a different subreddit soon. Myself, looking for my phone when it was in my hand all the time, then answering a call, and continuing looking for it during the call. Edit. Thanks for the award and damn, using glasses must suck sometimes. You know the reason you bury a rattlesnake after you kill it is because bees will eat it. Then bees can sting people with rattlesnake venom. Guy the first heard constantly trying to pick up women on public transit. A former coworker was talking about how she wanted to go back to school to get her master's degree because she only had a bachelorette degree and wanted more job opportunities. I said, "Do you mean a bachelor's degree?" She insisted it was pronounced bachelorette when it was given to a woman. Then she led me back to her office and pointed at her diploma, to the word baccalaureate, and said, "See? Bachelorette." I had a coworker, really sweet girl but dumb as shit, tell me she smoked American spirits because they were non-addictive, see? As she showed me the box. "Oh, honey, no. That says no additives." Such a sweet, stupid girl. She was a good server, at least. I once got into an argument with someone over my own name. There are two pronunciations, German and English. And they just couldn't accept the fact that I use the English pronunciation despite the fact that we were speaking English and it's what I've used my whole life, but nope, I was lying to mess with them. I've got two little girls who were born 15 months apart. They look pretty similar, and we get asked if they're twins pretty often. Even though one is quite a bit taller, you'd be forgiven for thinking they were fraternal twins. But yeah, I once got into an argument with somebody over whether my daughters are twins or not. It wasn't until I pointed out that I was literally there, watching them being birthed, that they finally conceded. The people who believe 5G is responsible for spreading the virus. Seriously, I don't understand how electromagnetic signals could possibly distribute a biologically impactful virus. Seriously, there's a new low every month per year. That people act surprised at the total death count going up. It's always going to go up. If it was going down, that's an entirely different pandemic altogether. Customers arguing that their tattoo is backwards while their artist tries to explain that no, your tattoo is fine, it just looks backwards because that's how mirrors work. People that cut holes in their masks because it's easier to breathe. I worked with a lady who was remarking on how a friend of hers had lost a bunch of weight. She pondered, I wonder how many Diet Cokes she had to drink to do that. Edit. Same lady was convinced beyond repair that when you sneeze, the air only comes out of your nose. There was no convincing her otherwise. Every time I put on my glasses so I can see better while looking for my glasses. About half the calls I take on a daily basis. People call 911 to ask whether Walmart is open. To report that they didn't get enough mayo on their burger. To complain that cleanup at a fatality wreck is taking too long. All sorts of silly, out-of-touch shit. Granted, there is probably some level of mental illness and/or substance abuse present in those calls. But still. The flat earther that tried to launch himself into fucking space and died. His name was Mike Hughes. It wasn't his first homemade rocket that he piloted. Here's an article about his death if anyone wants a read. Interestingly, after his death, his PR rep said he wasn't really a flat earther but only said that he was to get extra publicity. This helped raise funds for the rockets as they were largely funded through crowdsourcing. So the dude preyed upon the poor innocent flat earthers for money to prove the earth was flat? That's fucking hilarious. On the Man Show they set up a booth on some pier, I think Santa Monica, and were getting women to sign up to end women's suffrage. Tons of women were signing. Obviously, being the Man Show, this was a joke on women, but the reality is the amount of people in general who do not know suffrage is the right to vote and not some sort of suffering is far too high. Friend of mine showered in cold water for a year cause he never thought of turning the other tap to see what it would do. I worked in retail for a few years and it taught me that many people are either incapable or unwilling to read. I have had people walk up to me to ask me how much something is, only for the price tag to be featured prominently on the item. It's $9.99, ma'am. How did you know? It says so on the price tag, ma'am. I used to manage a retail store that sold teen clothing, so as expected, I primarily had teens working for me. One employee came to the back room while I was on break and asked what I was eating. Somehow the topic turned to how I should have brought chicken for lunch because she wanted chicken. I told her I was vegetarian and therefore don't eat meat. She tells me chicken is not meat. It's poultry and vegetarians can eat poultry? She said at the grocery store the aisles list meat and poultry separately, so they're obviously different. We argued for a couple of minutes before I finally told her to go back to the sales floor. She didn't last at the job long, but damn. American voters were surveyed as to which they liked better, Obamacare, or the Affordable Care Act, ACA. The ACA had drastically higher support. They are the same fucking thing. I was doing a COVID decon of a medical supply warehouse that had a confirmed positive employee not too long ago, and while my team was inside doing our thing, the floor shift manager was following us around without a mask or gloves or really any of the proper PPE except for a high-vis vest and steel toe boots. I had to tell her to leave the room. I was fogging with viricide. Edit. Meanwhile, we were wearing full-level C hazmat suits with P100 combo cartridge respirators and all seams taped up. I had a bald man return a hairdryer because it burnt his head. One of my closest friends. Really good guy but well. I'm learning Spanish and I once told him I was reading this Don Quixote book. I complained about how difficult it was because it was written in 1605. And he said, wait. Spanish existed back then? Groups of people leaving their house to block the roads to a hospital because they're upset that they can't leave their house. I used to work for a chatbot app. Our app would text our users every morning with a greeting in a different language, i.e. hola, bonjour, etc. One day we got blown up by a user saying their account was hacked. She said, "My name is Kim Smith, not Kim Konnichiwa, someone's hacked my account." When we explained that our service has been clearly saying hello to her in other languages every day and that konnichiwa is hello in Japanese and her account was fine, she went on a racist rant and said Disney was behind the destruction of America. Yep. When farms have trouble producing their crops, and you ask some dipshit if that worries them, I don't get my food from a farm, I get it from Walmart. My dad is a pesticide investigator for the state and heard this on a complaint. I set out all these bird feeders and bird baths but not one bird comes to my yard. I bet it is all those pesticides that crop duster is laying down in the field. Local school board member, as they were standing in her 5-acre yard with 20 or more cats running around. That trick where you call water by a scary chemical name like dihydrogen monoxide so that people will want to regulate or ban it. My local pool contains high quantities of a chemical used in industrial cleaning solutions, and is used to cool nuclear reactors. Think of the children. I'm a physician. Eye doctor specifically. I will tell you that the longer I work, now 15 years, my standard for the average person continues to decline. Case in point. Thanks to the awful information filtering out there. I had a patient just last week who read that vitamin D helps you resist a coronavirus infection. Well, he had also read that you can get more vitamin D by getting more sun. So he wanted to collect as much light as possible with his eyes. As a result, he stared at the sun for a solid 60 seconds and burned holes directly into his retinas, permanently reducing his vision with no chance at future improvement. People who think Arabic numerals shouldn't be taught in schools.